Donald Trump is standing before the court again. This time, the indictment is a conspiracy against the security of the state by trying to overturn the 2020 election results. This means that Donald Trump will be the first former president to face this kind of indictment. The list of indictment include the attempt of Trump to undermine the democracy of US, in addition to encouraging the attacks on the Capitol and spreading lies in development that can influence the course of the trial. Mike Pence criticized heavily Trump, and he said that Trump at the time asked him to change the results of the election results. So we will discuss whether this will have an impact on his candidacy for the presidentials. Our guest from New York, Richard Roth, Democratic Strategist, welcome, and from Pensacola, Florida, Gene Valentino, Republican Strategist. Welcome.
Thank you.
I will start with you, Mr. Valentino. Former President Donald Trump reached the court, the federal court in Washington, to stand before the court in this new list of indictments, especially trying to change the results of the election and also the conspiracy against the security of the state. This is a new indictment, especially for a former president in US. Do you think he will overcome this new case?
Well, thank you for having us. Yes, I do. I think this is more of an infringement on free speech. The accusations against Donald Trump are without merit. And at this point, I think that it will be a situation where in our court system, Donald Trump will have the opportunity to cross-examine and to bring evidence of his own forward, which will unravel this two-tiered inequitable system of justice we have in the existing Biden administration.
So a violation of the freedom of speech. Even Trump himself said that. Mr. Richard Roth, we wonder who is benefiting from these successive cases against Donald Trump. Is it Trump himself whose popularity increases, and the polls show that, how he is the most successful contender among Republicans, or the Democratic Party, which has a strong card to play with in the elections?
So it's very interesting. Donald Trump's popularity is increasing, which quite frankly is somewhat fascinating as a political strategist. But what's going to happen, presumably, is that as this trial gets closer, he's going to be on the stump campaigning on Monday. He's going to be in court on Wednesday in New York. He's going to be in court on Friday in D.C. And the populace is going to start to understand that he himself engages in his own unraveling. This is not about the First Amendment. The First Amendment protects you, but I can't walk into a movie theater and yell fire. That's a speech. You can't do that. Nor can Donald Trump do what he did. And I think that there's no better proof of the people believing that he did was wrong than his own people who supported him. Let's not forget the co-conspirators in this indictment and the people that were interviewed were on his team. They were his assistants. They were his bodyguard. They were his vice president. So his popularity is going up, but it will not go up for long. Come the turn of the year, when he finds himself in court once a week, twice a week, it's going to turn. And let's not forget, there's another indictment that'll be coming within the next 2 weeks in Georgia. So there are 4 separate indictments for 4 very different crimes, which the Republicans want to paint as a Democratic strategy. I don't believe in coincidences. So each one of these is as serious as the other one.
So you answered indirectly, Mr. Richard. It seems that what is required in this stage is to exhaust the Republican candidates, Trump. What do you say?
It's not really exhausting. The irony is that the Democrats want Donald Trump to be the nominee because Donald Trump lost he lost in 18, the Congress in 18, he lost in 20, he lost in 22, and he will most likely lose in 24. Let's not forget he has less followers than he had in 20, and he lost then. So what's happening is the Republicans can't get rid of him. The problem with the Republicans right now is that he is such a force to be reckoned with. They can't be a dissent to him. Think about it. Every candidate, except for maybe one running against him, is supporting him in the criminal issue, which quite frankly is they have to because they know how strong his presence is and how strong his support is. But it's not a Democratic strategy. Jack Smith was an independent prosecutor. The prosecutor in New York was independent. The prosecutor in Georgia is independent. He engaged in crimes. And if the Republicans are saying when you engage in crimes, if you're running for president, you shouldn't be indicted, that's a bigger issue. That's a bigger issue.
Some are considering that there is no big difference between the campaign that was followed by the Democratic Party, which succeeded as per them, and the current campaign that we are seeing. Mr. Richard, you mentioned that some close figures to Trump are trying to criticize him and abandoning him. Mr. Valentino, Mike Pence, the former vice president, criticized heavily Trump in the last few hours. We were surprised when he confirmed that Trump asked him to change the results of the elections. Why he is making this big surprise now in this particular time, and how this will influence the course of the trial, and what is the reason? Is it because he wants more popularity now in his rivalry?
Well, the closer you get to the fire, the more likely you will get burnt. This is no small coincidence that these accusations are coming from all sides and are tied closely to the political process. Justice has failed us here in the United States because it is tied to a political incentive, a political opportunity. And when you do that, justice goes out the window, and fairness, equal rights, free speech, and all the other rights that are in our Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, the very first ones talks about free speech. And in this case, today, Trump is being criminalized for free speech. He can accuse anybody, he can claim all he wants that the last election was unjust and criminal, and he has a right to do that. But it doesn't mean it should follow that he should be charged for a crime in saying so. You know, you can always put whipped cream on manure, but it's still manure. We have all this attention on Trump when right under our noses, the Biden crime family continues to engage in extortion and bribery schemes. And it's proven, it's all coming out. And yet the media draws its attention to the Trump indictment. Well, let me say, not only 3 indictments, but 3 times he's been presented before the court involving 178 charges. Doesn't anybody think there might be something suspicious about that? And by the way, Jack Smith is, he hasn't won a case at all. And you asked me about Vice President Pence, formerly Trump's vice president, who's barely making it into the polls and is not likely after the Iowa caucuses to even come through on the primary. he won't even be there because there's something missing. It's called loyalty. There has been a movement afoot that goes far before Donald Trump that has resulted in the takedown of what Donald Trump represents. That's why he's saying right now, if they're coming after me and I'm just in their way because they're coming after you. And that means that they're trying to push a more Marxist, socialistic agenda, and the rights of you and me are overshadowed by the rights of me, meaning the elite, folks that live on a principle that can't be delivered on. For example, in New York City alone, an alleged sanctuary city is now being, the mayor is begging people not to come because they can't handle any more illegal immigrants coming in from the southern border. If everyone is so smart, how come we have so many problems? And if Biden is such a great guy, how come in the last 3 years this nation has fallen into near chaos?
Mr. Valentino, Trump criticized this and he described it as an example of the chaos and the scandal and the failure of US in the administration of Biden. Mr. Richard Roth, the followers of Trump consider these trials and this court fabricated in order to target Trump personally and prevent his return to the White House. What do you say?
There's so much I can respond to by my colleague. The bottom line is that it's a 50-page double-spaced complaint, indictment. The one in Mar-a-Lago is 50-page double-spaced. This is not Trump committed a crime, indict him. This has dates. It has documents. It has co-conspirators. It has people. If my colleague thinks that he shouldn't be indicted just because he's running for president, that's not what this country is founded on. This country is founded on if someone commits a crime, they should be indicted. I don't care if they're running for president or if they're president. And what's most disturbing about this indictment, this isn't a crime like they want to throw out with Biden. This is attempting to overthrow the very basis of our institution. He tried to overthrow democracy. If you read the indictment, page 1, page 5, page 20, page 30, page 50, every single page goes into excruciating detail. This is not fabricated. It cites the people. It cites the documents, just like the last indictment. The reason why it does that is because there'd be people on television like my colleague saying, oh, this is all a farce. This is not a farce. I think my colleague would agree that if Donald Trump committed a crime, he should be indicted. He doesn't care if he's president or running for president. And that's what this is about. This is, and what's even, as I said, more bothersome is that this is about trying to overthrow our democratic system. This isn't about New York City and having immigrants. This isn't about loyalty. My colleague says loyalty. How about loyalty to your vice president? The people that testified that they have sworn statements of in both Mar-a-Lago and in Washington, D.C. are Republicans. They aren't Democrats. They are people that worked hand in hand with Donald Trump. There are quotes in these indictments, quotes from people who Donald Trump told them, I knew this was a secret. I did it anyway. I knew I shouldn't have done this. This is Donald Trump's words. They have Donald Trump on tape committing a crime. So this is not weaponizing the justice system. This is if someone did something which is criminal, then that's the way the system works. The system is working here. What my colleague doesn't like is that he wants to vote for Donald Trump. Well, you know what? If Donald Trump committed a crime and said fire in a movie theater, which is exactly what he did here, that he should be indicted and he most likely will be convicted. That's what this is about.
Trump says he is expressing freedom of speech, Mr. Richard. And it seems that Trump will be sued by other indictments in Georgia and in other places. So we will see what will happen in the coming weeks and months. Mr. Valentino, the judiciary path waiting for Trump will be long. and some hearings will be next year in parallel with the election campaign. How come personality is, I mean, all this problem can reach presidency?
Well, if I understand the question correctly, there is an issue with the timing of this. Isn't it coincidence that it's coming so close to the campaign? And therein lies the strategy of why this is coming up the way it is. Look, let me back up to some of the things my colleague has mentioned. Loyalty to your boss is one thing. Supporting a wrongdoing is something else. He's wrong in thinking that I'm necessarily going to vote for Donald Trump. I want to vote for the best person after I learn more. But here's what I do know, being close to the fire. When Donald Trump stepped down the escalator at his hotel announcing his election campaign before 2020, his phone system was wiretapped. When he got elected, his children were accused of impropriety with business transactions worldwide that his father had engaged in before he even got elected. What turned out instead was that after Biden got elected, let me finish the point, they were also deposed and interrogated for weeks behind closed doors to try to get something on their father, Trump. Now, quick reference. Hunter Biden, with evidence in plain sight, no one wants to talk about it, everyone's ignoring it, and no one wants to come forward to try to connect the dots as to just how close Joe Biden, the father, was to some of these millions of dollars, over $50 million of payoff that came out of Ukraine, that came out of Russia, that came out of Romania and other states over there. And no one wants to talk about it as if it doesn't exist. And how dare I say anything bad about Joe Biden and his wrongdoing? Meanwhile, I can't get a straight answer out of the guy as he trips going up and down stairs. He can't complete an English language sentence. Failure to defend the rights of other people may someday result in your rights not being defended. I will support Donald Trump's position, even if I dislike what he's saying. And if I was to really look at the facts, I would like to look at where this nation's gone in the last 3 years under Biden and compare it to our financial independence, our control over the oil and production, our economic strategy and security at our borders. Tell me, over in Arabia and all the Emirate states, do you allow people to come over your border the way this administration is allowing people to come over our border? It's an absolute atrocity. It's egregious. It's disgraceful.
We'll wait. We'll wait. What will happen, Mr. Richard? I know you have comments. And I want to share with you what the former President Trump wrote in Truth Social. He said, I didn't get this popularity and this support, never ever. And he thanked all the followers. Mr. Richard, maybe this court, this coverage by different international media outlets of this, maybe they compensate Trump this long absence. What do you say?
Listen, the bottom line is that I love how Mr. Valentino says, I don't know who I'm voting for, but Biden's a disgrace. He's a criminal and he's doing a terrible job. I don't want to talk that, but let's not forget there's more legislation passed during the Biden administration with Congress approval than since any president since Ronald Reagan. We could talk about the CHIP Act. We could talk about the COVID Act. We could talk about what's happened with inflation. The border problem is a problem. It's clearly a problem. It wasn't any better back then than it is now. There are problems in this country. But and we can also talk about Hunter Biden. But the issue before you, I think the reason why we were brought on, even though Mr. Valentino is doing good Trumpy-esque deflection, the reason what's before you is the Trump indictment. And the reason why this is so damning is because he wasn't indicted this time for paying a porn star. That was 2 times ago. He wasn't indicted this time for taking top secret documents, which he shouldn't have taken. He was indicted this time for attempting to ruin our democracy. That's not, I don't think Biden or Hunter Biden or his father have been accused of that. Let's think how serious that is. If someone is trying to harm the very principles of the very principles upon which this country is based, and does so, which results in deaths at the Capitol, results in a literally noose to hang Mike Pence, results in Mike Pence being hidden in a corner so they couldn't find him and kill him, results in them trying to kill Nancy Pelosi, results in them almost killing her husband. Think of all the things that have been happening here, all under Donald Trump's watch, okay? So if we want to talk about stabilization, if we want to talk about going forward, if we want to talk about not messing with the very system that was built, then I don't know how Mr. Valentino can say he would vote for Donald Trump, but obviously he is. The bottom line here,
putting words in my mouth
Donald
again.
Trump is a master. He's a master at manipulation, at deflection and denial. But the problem with that is that it caught up to him. There was a great poem that says, "Oh, what tangled webs we lead if first we leave if at first we practice to deceive." And Donald Trump has been deceiving the American public for years. I personally know him. I've had litigation with him. He is a master con artist.
Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Roth. Sorry to interrupt you. Thank you very much, Mr. Richard Roth, Democratic Strategist. You were with us from New York. Thank you very much, Mr. Gene Valentino, Republican Strategist from Pensacola, Florida. Thank you both. Thank you.
Bye-bye.